What's going on, guys? This is Rob Patrons, my inner circle of the Rob Core. We are back again with another episode of our Versus series, and you guys did not mess around this week as you picked two of the most absurdly powerful characters in all of comics to basically square off: Rune King Thor and Superboy-Prime. So, without any further ado, let's get into breaking down the origins and powers of these two ridiculously powerful characters, starting with Rune King Thor. Also, if you guys don't care, I think I might throw this up on YouTube today as well to kind of give people an indication of some of the stuff that we do here on Patreon. But I'm going to assume that all of you guys know who Thor is, and then just get right into the events that led him into becoming Rune King Thor. So for all the people who hadn't seen our previous video, this will be new to you. For the people who did see our previous video, bear with me here. So this all occurred during the lead up to Avengers Disassembled, the storyline that took place in 2004 and spans issues 80 through 85 of The Mighty Thor, written by Michael Oeming. And what's going on during these issues is that Odin has basically been killed by Surtur, and Thor has succeeded him as a terrible leader of Asgard. Now, he kind of loses his mind and actually ends up trying to take over Earth and then fighting the Avengers and then imprisoning them and marrying one of his villains, Amora the Enchantress. And Thor and Amora end up having a son that grows up to highly disapprove of how Thor has ruled. So Thor realizes how terrible he is at being a king and decides to go back in time and undo all the stupid stuff that he's done, which was basically a Marvel editorial decision to undo all the stupid decisions they'd made. But after he does this, Asgard faces a new threat in the form of Loki, who's basically brought Surtur back from the dead and is attempting to bring about Ragnarok, the final battle of the Asgardians that will bring about the destruction of Asgard itself. Now, Surtur begins using the forge where Mjolnir was originally made to make additional hammers out of Uru, and then Loki assembles a team of Thor's most powerful enemies and basically kicks the Asgardians all to hell to the point that they're nearly defeated. Thor then dons the personification of the Odin Force that tells him that he needs to gain wisdom, and that to do that, he basically needs to go beyond what Odin was willing to do and do this on his own wisdom quest. So he goes to the well where Odin gouges out one of his eyes and gouges out both of his eyes. And then he goes to the life tree where Odin hung himself until he nearly died, and Thor hangs there until he actually does die, which gives him knowledge of rune magic. Now, the spirit of Odin rescues Thor from death, and then he finally finds himself before those who sit above in shadow, which are basically a council of divine beings vastly more powerful than the Asgardian gods. And armed with the knowledge of rune magic and the Odin Force, Thor vows to break the cycle of Ragnarok, which gives the ones who sit above in shadow the power that they have. And at this point, Thor's more powerful than he had ever been in the history of Marvel Comics. As to exactly what his powers are, he has all of Thor's regular powers: super strength, durability, nearly to the point of being invulnerable, flight, command of thunder and lightning, and the ability to wield the powerful energy attack known as the God Blast. But now Thor's powers are amplified significantly to the point that one of the things he does is defeat the Mangog, a villain that had always given Thor a lot of difficulty over the years. And this is not even really a competitive fight, right? Like, Thor absolutely crushes this guy in the sense that he literally defeats Mangog with a single punch that actually erases him from existence, which is insane. Imagine getting punched so hard you just cease to exist. But after defeating the Mangog, Thor dispatches Loki's entire army, which had basically had no trouble destroying Asgard up to that point, and Thor does this without any real difficulty. Now, after allowing Surtur to invade Asgard, Thor makes his way to the Tapestry of Fate, which basically contains the threads that make up reality itself, intending to destroy it so the cycle of Ragnarok will be broken. But despite pleas from those who sit above in shadow not to do so, Thor basically destroys the tapestry with one swing of his hammer, and with it also destroys the life tree Yggdrasil and those who sit above in shadow. So this version of Thor was basically able to take out a group of gods who they themselves were gods to gods, so we know he's powerful, and also because he quite literally destroyed reality. But is he more powerful than Superboy-Prime? Well, Superboy-Prime technically debuted in DC Comics Presents number 87 in 1985 by Elliot Maggin and Curt Swan, who, by the way, I don't know how many of you guys know this, Curt Swan drew Superman for like 35 years. He's like the Superman artist. To give you guys perspective, like Curt Swan art that is kind of like unfinished art, or like the art he drew for comic book panels where it's like black and white and it shows the frame of the comic and all that kind of stuff, that sells for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. This guy's art is on a whole different level. But Superboy-Prime didn't actually adopt his namesake until Infinite Crisis in 2006. He's basically Kal-El from Earth Prime, which is really supposed to be DC's version of our world, where superheroes only exist exist as fictional characters and no one has superpowers. Now, Kal-El is the last known survivor of the planet Krypton who's sent to Earth by his parents before the planet is completely incinerated. And he's found and adopted by Jerry and Naomi Kent, who give them the name Clark. Now, when Clark is 15, his powers manifest and he becomes a carbon copy of the Superman of the main DC universe, with one notable exception. Because magic does not exist in his universe, Superboy-Prime does not have the weakness to magic that Superman does. But other than that, all of his powers are basically the same. Super strength, speed, invulnerability, flight, frostbite, heat vision, x-ray vision, the whole deal. However, just like with Rune King Thor, Superboy-Prime's power levels are insanely amped. Although we never get a definitive explanation as to why this is, one possible explanation is that the time he spent in the Paradise Dimension basically drove him insane. When his universe was destroyed by the Anti-Monitor during Crisis on Infinite Earths, Superboy-Prime basically escaped to a pocket reality after the defeat of the Anti-Monitor because he basically wasn't supposed to exist. And while he's there, he gets increasingly pissed off that he's been robbed of his youth and begins resenting the Superboy-Prime of the main DC universe, Connor Kent, because he sees Connor living out the life he was meant to live, and because Connor Kent is far less interesting than Superboy-Prime, this madness eventually drives him crazy. Now, this descent into madness is the most likely explanation for Superboy-Prime's increased power level, since he doesn't hold anything back, unlike the main universe Superman that only uses as much force as he deems absolutely necessary. Now, Superboy-Prime has pulled off some ridiculous feats, the most impressive of which was punching his way out of the Paradise Dimension by breaking down the barrier of reality and then separating it from the DC universe proper when he got tired of being there. These punches shatter the barrier and also send ripple effects throughout the entire universe's timeline, quite literally altering reality, like bringing back Jason Todd, bringing all the different versions of Superman's origin in line with one another, and completely rebooting the Doom Patrol, which is something that no one asked for. So just like Rune King Thor, Superboy-Prime has shown an ability to alter reality, but that's not the only impressive feat Superboy-Prime has pulled off. He was able to alter the orbits of planets and change where the center of the universe was. Furthermore, he punched through the barrier to the Phantom Zone, which is a prison dimension that can contain the most dangerous and powerful threats to the multiverse. On another occasion, he gets trapped in the Speed Force, and while he's there, he's exposed to the light of red suns, which dampen his powers. And so he's able to escape with the help of a suit that he constructs that siphons and stores power from yellow suns, and then escape the Speed Force, which was thought to be impossible. In terms of speed, Superboy-Prime is said to be faster than Wally West, widely considered to be the fastest Flash alive. And finally, he was able to defeat the Justice Society, Teen Titans, and Doom Patrol simultaneously, which was amazing. Dude, this guy literally just shat all over those guys. It wasn't even fair. He was like ripping arms and legs off, man. It was, God, let me tell you something, man. It was absolutely amazing. So obviously, we have two insanely powerful characters here, and that always makes figuring out a winner incredibly difficult. And this particular battle is made even more difficult by the fact that Rune King Thor was not around very long and only appeared in a handful of issues, meaning that the feats that we have to draw from are incredibly limited. But limited as they might be, one of these feats shows us just how broken Rune King Thor is. The fact that he was able to defeat those who sit above in shadow. When this happened, we knew very little about this group, but it was later suggested by Loki that they could have been the Beyonders. Now, the Beyonders are an extremely powerful race of aliens that threaten the very existence of the multiverse. So the fact that they were unable to stop Rune King Thor from destroying the Tapestry of Fate and themselves with it gives us an idea of just how powerful Rune King Thor was. One factor we need to take into account, however, is that Superboy-Prime does not have a weakness to magic like Superman does, which is significant because much of Rune King Thor's power is derived from magic. However, although he is not especially vulnerable to magic, Superboy-Prime is not immune to its effects either, so he can still be affected by Rune King Thor's attacks. And although Superboy-Prime has a list of incredibly impressive feats, at the end of the day, he's still going up against Earth's heroes, not a group of beings that are well above the power level of the gods and perhaps on par with the Beyonders. And while it's true that Thor did not battle those who sit above in shadow in the traditional sense, it's still true that they were powerless to stop him. And so even though Rune King Thor's power level is largely implied, since there aren't a lot of feats to draw on, he's going to be the one to take the victory here, as he just seems to be on a completely different level than Superboy-Prime. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Thank you all for watching. Keep your eyes out for the poll for next week's video, and I will catch you all later. Peace.